Hello, I'm Rico Cavella. Welcome to this episode of Fearless Aging, where in every episode, my guests and I, we strive to offer you proven tips and strategies that you can implement immediately to greatly improve your overall health and well-being. So we're here to inspire you and empower you to become your best self so you can go out and make a bigger positive impact in the world. So as always, we have three great shows for you today. The title of the first segment is New Regenerative Medicine Therapies for Healing Damaged Joints and Nerves. And the second segment is Radiant Health Begins in Your Kitchen Pantry. And the third segment is the 5-step plan for permanent weight loss. So as always, we bring you really pertinent topics that are all about what you can do for things that we're all dealing with. So, as always, I recommend you watch all the shows until the end, and we also, all of our guests have some great gifts for you as well. So, we'll get rolling here. I got to play a short message from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be into the very first segment.
In your 60s, 70s, and 80s, you were healthier, stronger, with more vitality than in your 40s. It's not genetics, it's not luck, it's the ageless living lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Rico Cavella, creator of the Ageless Living Lifestyle. I've had the good fortune to work with hundreds of individuals just like you to greatly improve their overall health and well-being. And my clients aren't just staying healthy, they're out hiking mountains, playing sports, and feeling better in their 70s and 80s than they did in their 40s. My clients and I are living agelessly, and I know you can as well. So let's have a friendly conversation about your personal aging challenges and your goals. There's no pressure, just an honest conversation about where you are now and where you want to be, and whether the ageless living lifestyle is a good fit for you. So I'm here for you. Let's talk.
All right, Hello, I'm Rico Cavella. Welcome to this episode of Fearless Aging. And we have a great segment today. The title of it is Using Regenerative Medicine, Exercise, and Good Inflammation for Healing Joints and Nerves. And I think there's quite a few of us that could use some healing for our joints and our nerves. And our expert guest is Dr. Thomas Buckheit. He's a board-certified physician specializing in regenerative and biological therapies for treating joint and nerve pain. He founded the Triangle Regen Medicine and Biologics Center, and he serves as an adjunct associate professor at Duke University, and he's the author of Healing Joints and Nerves, Immune Stimulation, and the New Science of Regenerative Therapies. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Dr. Buckheit, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Rico. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing. So let's start with, give us your definition, really, what is regenerative medicine, and maybe give some examples of that.
Well, I think we think of regenerative medicine as anything that really improves tissue health. I use very broadly that definition because that's really most of what we're doing. We're not necessarily growing new organs or tissues, but we're improving tissue health. And that can be in a joint, that can be in a nerve, it can be in a lot of different places. And that covers a lot of the therapies we do too. Things like platelet-rich plasma or stem cells or autologous conditioned serum and the Regenikine program. These are all things that have the possibility and have the ability, if we use them right, to improve tissue health, make muscles, joints, and cartilage stronger, and help us move better.
Yeah, that's so important. And you say it's kind of a new science of regenerative therapy. So talk about what is some of the latest science, or what are we capable of doing these days?
Yes, the new science part of it is that I think we now know how these therapies work much better than we ever did before. And they're working by turning on our own healing systems in the body. And that's, I think, really an encouraging part for all of us. The same systems that we turn on when we exercise, for instance, The same systems that we turn on if we have a cut or a sprain or a break that our bodies use to heal, those same immune-based systems are turned on with the regenerative therapies, and they will stimulate different parts of the immune cascade. And in the book, I look at all the regenerative therapies and look at them within the context of our own healing systems and our own immune reaction to an injury. And it tries to make it really make sense for the reader as well.
Yeah. So, I think most people know that our bodies are constantly healing. It's meant to heal, and we should be able to heal just about everything. But we need some help. Definitely, we need some help. So all these new therapies can be really helpful. One they talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, you bring up a really good point of sometimes we need help, because I'll use the example of knee arthritis, for instance, which, affects millions of individuals and keeps people from pursuing activities. And one of the things that I also do is I want us to reconceptualize how we think of arthritis. We've thought of it recently. It used to be a wear and tear disease, then it became an inflammatory problem. But really, if we think about it, osteoarthritis is a wound that just won't heal. That's why it's inflamed. But that's also why if we treat the inflammation, it doesn't improve the disease. And I'll explain that further, but we need to treat the underlying disorder. And if we get the wound to heal, the inflammation dies back, the inflammation goes away. And that concept, I think, is really important to understand how we need to treat these disorders. I'll use the example of steroid injections. So steroid injections have been used for 75 years now to treat osteoarthritis pain. They work very well short term. And some people, they can work longer term. I think that they can be very effective if they get people moving again, get people back to their workout, into the gym. But some people only see a few weeks of improvement or maybe a couple of months. And we now know there's been some very clear research that if people get repeated injections over and over again, it actually degrades and hurts the health of cartilage. That actually accelerates osteoarthritis because we're not treating the underlying disorder. And that's kind of what I look at in the book of how do you treat the underlying condition? How do you improve tissue health? And we do that by stimulating our own body's healing mechanisms. And exercise is one way of doing that. Regenerative therapies are another way of doing that.
So you're saying, speaking of osteoarthritis, so you said the root cause is really from an injury. Is that right? Some kind of injury?
Well, commonly, a lot of people will have post-injury arthritis, but even people can also have low-level inflammation, and they can get arthritis from that as well, from lots of different reasons. And we need to figure out how to flip an immune switch to take that low-level inflammation and to resolve it. And that's one of the beauties. I know you talk a lot about exercise and the importance of exercise, and I'm a huge believer in that as well. It's just so important. But exercise is one of those things that helps to flip that immune switch and take low-level inflammation and actually help it to resolve. Strangely enough, exercise is good inflammation. And if you even you can look at, and I talk about this in the book, but you can even look at a muscle after a high-intensity exercise routine. It has all kinds of inflammatory markers in it. But what that inflammation does, it's short, it's strong, and it helps to resolve things afterwards. And so that's the beauty of it. And that's the same thing we do with, for instance, platelet-rich plasma. That's the same thing that stem cells do. That's the same thing that even autologous conditioned serum can do later on.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I was going to ask you, what is good inflammation? Because normally in mainstream we think inflammation is not good, right? But like I say, exercise is actually creates good inflammation. It helps the body, gets more oxygen, more circulation, and so it helps the body to actually heal.
Exactly. It's a really important distinction. We've always thought of inflammation as always bad. And chronic inflammation is always bad. Chronic inflammation, it degrades tissues, it causes chronic pain, it causes disease. But we have, I think, assumed as a medical profession and even as a society that therefore all inflammation is bad. And that's just not true. If you can take it and harness the power of that, that becomes an effective therapy. And so good inflammation, to me, it's short, it's strong, and it flips a healing immune switch to start a healing cascade.
Well, talk to us a little bit about what sort of exercise what type of exercise would you recommend for people who are having some joint problems or osteoarthritis or even arthritis? Yeah.
Right. There are many different types, and there have been all kinds of different studies. I think the short answer is that whatever people can do is a good thing as long as they don't get injured doing it. I think there's nothing better than a good brisk walk if people are able to go out for a walk, whether it's with friends, whether it's with a pet. It can be just a very effective thing, and walking has been shown to be good for joints. It's not wear and tear. When we walk, we provide nutrients to our cartilage, and we also turn on these healing mechanisms. Some people may be able to pursue higher intensity activities, whether that is jogging or pickleball or swimming. Those are all great activities. Balance activities are clearly important to people as we all age, and aging is a good thing because it beats the alternative, right? And balance is really critical to maintain as well, and that's why yoga and some of those therapies and exercises can be very effective. So I think there are advantages to nearly all activities as long as we do them carefully. And I think of it, exercise, you want to train, right? So you want to have these episodes of stimulation, of brief inflammation, good inflammation, stimulation, and recovery. So it's over and over again, that pattern of stimulation, recovery, stimulation, recovery. You know, we all know if we go out and push too hard on the first day of any activity, we're going to get hurt, right? And then we're going to be laid up for how many weeks or how many months. So we have to train our bodies. And that training is, in fact, relying on this process. And those same healing mechanisms we use with regenerative medicine. And, you know, those are the therapies I offer in clinic, and those are the therapies I talk about in the book. And I go into a fair amount of detail on how they work. Even stem cells work by turning on these immune systems. Stem cells don't grow new tissues. If somebody has a stem cell injection into their knee or their hip, those cells aren't growing new cartilage. Those cells are turning on your body's own immune healing mechanisms.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, as far as exercise goes, it's always moderation. That's what I always teach, especially as we age. You know, we don't need to do boot camps and anything extreme, especially extreme exercises. Any extreme exercise is actually aging our body and wearing our body down. So I think what you said is as long as you can do most anything, as long as it's not causing you pain and it feels all right.
Yeah, as long as we kind of realize where your limits are, and it all depends on where somebody starts. And I always encourage people to figure out where they are, and that's their starting point. And you want to increase a little bit by little bit, but not too much, because and if you push too hard, you're going to be laid up for a little bit afterwards, and you're going to be falling back on your routine.
Well, let's talk about nerve regeneration now. I mean, I think I think it's more common that we know that joints can heal and we can regenerate joints, but what about nerve? You know, I think it's kind of commonly known that once you have nerve damage, it's really hard to regenerate nerves, and I had that problem too. I'll tell you about mine, but tell us about how nerve damage can be regenerated.
Nerves can recover. Now, I think a lot of people assume that once a nerve is damaged, it can never recover. And that's just not true. Nerves can. There have been several studies, again, looking at exercise and looking at individuals with neuropathy from diabetes and other conditions. And you can actually see improvements in how fast nerves conduct those signals. And that's a good indicator of how healthy a nerve is, how fast it works, how fast it conducts that signal. That can improve with exercise. It can also improve some of the therapies. The cold laser, for instance, there have been some studies of cold laser looking at individuals with chemotherapy neuropathy and diabetic neuropathy, and they actually saw improved nerve function with cold laser. And the theory is that laser at certain frequencies will improve mitochondria and how they function, and therefore the nerve gets more energy. Nerves are energy hogs, and if they see just a little bit of a decrease in function, a little bit of decrease in mitochondrial function, they start to malfunction. And so any way that we can improve that energy supply to a nerve will help its function. And the regenerative therapies can be effective too. I always start with the basic stuff and start with exercise and then go from there.
Well, let me ask you about my case. This has been quite a while ago now, probably 8 years, where I had a really bad bicycle accident, and I did have a herniated disc at L4, and then I got a case of sciatica just for about a weekend. It was really bad, but then when it stopped, it left my leg, one of my legs, sort of numbed from the knee down, and then also I have a little bit of pain along the outer side of my leg, and and so I got X-rays and stuff. And I saw orthopedists and all that, and so I thought I could hopefully regenerate, so I didn't think about having any surgery. But then after about 3 or 4 years, still nothing had happened, and so I just been wondering, if there's any way that possibly could actually regenerate, because that's probably from nerve damage, right? That's causing that numbness and that weakness in my legs. So one of my legs is still, the muscles. When I do too much exercise, it really starts to get hurt. So I'm not getting enough oxygen to the muscles, I guess.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that can cause that numbness and weakness, and sometimes if you compress a nerve enough with a disc herniation or an injury, the nerve will die all the way back to the point of injury. It's got a name to it. It's got a fancy name to it, but basically the nerve kind of dies back to that point of injury. And sometimes though, the nerve will just lose its coating on it. And so if a nerve can just regrow that coating, that happens on the average of weeks. If the nerve dies back, it has to regrow its whole length. For sciatic nerve, that's a little bit hard because it's just such a long, if you think about it, that's a 3 to 4 foot long nerve. Mm-hmm. And so it can improve. I always think of it this way. You can improve the function of those long neurons, but you might not be able to regrow 4 feet of neuron. If you're a 2-year-old, you might be able to pull that off, but most of the rest of us may have a hard time doing that. But what I focus on is let's take the nerves and the neurons that are still there and let's get them to function better. And I think that is a very realistic way to approach that. And everybody's a little different. Every scenario is a little bit different. But we do have the tools within our own bodies, and also some of the other regenerative therapies that can improve how nerves function.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, we're just about out of time. So again, I highly recommend that you go to Dr. Buckheit's website and check out his book, Healing Joints and Nerves, Immune Stimulation and the New Science of Regenerative Therapies. You can get a copy of it there. So just in the last minute or so here, just mention a little bit more about what they'll find and what kind of good information they'll get out of your book.
The book really talks about the things that we've gone over, which is how do we stimulate our own healing systems. And it does look at how the regenerative therapies work, but really looks at them within the context of our own bodies and our own innate ability to repair. And I think that's the interesting, I think, hopefully for some readers, is that it all comes back to them and that they can understand this world, because the regenerative therapy world is a kind of a confusing space for a lot of people. They hear different things about stem cells and platelet-rich plasma and Regenikine, these other treatments. And I wanted to have a scientifically accurate source for people to use as a referral, that they can understand how these treatments actually work. So that's the goal.
That's so good. Well, Dr. Buckheit, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for the work that you're doing. And I just want to say, you being a medical doctor, and you're doing these more holistic and advanced therapies and recommending exercise and to let the body heal. I really appreciate that. So thanks for your good work.
Absolutely. My website is triregenmed.com, TRIREGEN med.com. One word, triregenmed.com.
Yeah, we'll put that link in the show description so that they'll be able to contact you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Again, thank you for your work, and thanks for being here, and thanks to our audience. So if you like today's show, tell your friends about the Fearless Aging TV show. Okay, we're back. So I have another short message from one of our sponsors, and then we'll get into the second segment. The radiant health begins in your kitchen pantry.
Stop forcing down those massive pills that end up in your toilet, not in your bloodstream. Hello, I'm Rico Cavaglia. For the very first time in my 43 years as a personal trainer and wellness coach, I am endorsing and recommending a unique line of nutritional supplements. Superior Source produces an exclusive line of microlingual tablets that dissolve instantly under your tongue. I have a hard time swallowing large tablets and capsules, but these tiny tablets are the easiest to take I have ever found. These products are clinically tested for purity, potency, and have the highest rate of absorption. Microlingual tablets are ideal for those with digestive challenges and for infants and children, as there are no pills to swallow. They offer a full line of key nutritional supplements, including many for children. So why give these supplements a try? They're easy to take, highly absorbable, and inexpensive. Join thousands who have ditched their pills. One tablet under your tongue will make you a believer.
All right. Hello, I'm Rico Cavaglia. Welcome to this episode of Fearless Aging. And the title of today's episode, it's an interesting one for sure. It's called The Secrets to Radiant Health Begins in Your Kitchen Pantry. So this is going to be real interesting. Okay, and our expert guest, her name is Suzanne Roth. She's a primal health coach and wellness advocate for those caught in the loop of information, overwhelm, and harmful addictive foods and products causing unnecessary suffering. So I think that's good enough. That's what we need to know about. So Suzanne Roth, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Rico. Nice to see you. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Yeah. We're going to really talk about how important the food is and all the toxins that you can get in your food and how that's causing you so much problems. And then we'll let people know about your coaching program, how you can help them work through all that and get the right food in their kitchen and
Yes.
eat the right healthy food so they can really greatly improve their overall health. So let's just start off. My first question, you say the power of good health starts at a young age. What do you mean by that?
Well, because I'm doing this work as a result of my own messy, my mess has now become my message, because I suffered as a young girl all the way back to my mother's womb. She was a smoker. So that was the first thing that was a toxin. And then at the age of 2, I almost died. And so from that point on, we never really figured out what it was, but I'm just going to say that for the most part, whatever happened to me at age 2, which we think was probably a vaccine overload or vaccine poisoning, was that from then on, it messed up my hormones. And so I grew up in the South. And so I ended up not only having a hormone imbalance from at birth almost, I lived in agriculture. So I had all the spraying all around me. I had the herbicides, pesticides. I played in the fields. I was in the country. So that kind of was like the beginnings. And then all through my puberty and up until a young woman into my 40s, I was a hot mess, and my hormones were a wreck. And the medical model was to just medicate. And so I did a fair amount of damage with my body from eating badly. I was also a sugar addict. I grew up in the South. My mother was a baker. I love sugar. And so sugar loves me. It's like it's an addiction. And so I really had a bad diet with way too many simple carbs and processed foods. But I was also a product of a gardening father. So I had a balance. So yes, it goes forward to where, when I discovered what all my reasons were, it basically was an old age. I was getting in my 40s, perimenopausal. Everybody was saying, oh, it's just your age. It wasn't that. We discovered in my late 40s, it was old toxins. And so we go back and we talk about, now I enlighten people about what happened to me. And, I'm healthier at 60 now. So 20 years later than I ever was at 40.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So it is so important to realize that, one of the biggest factors is in all this chronic illness and that people are experiencing today and becoming old and sick and dying way too young is because of the poor quality food and all the toxins that are in it. And I mean, you're a living example of that. So I want to congratulate you for being able to work through that and do what you do now and get the right message out to people. So let's talk about how important the food that you actually eat, how important that it is. Let's just start with organic, because as we know, pesticides, as you know, all the pesticides and herbicides, they cause so much toxicity in our body, and a lot of them are carcinogenic. So talk just a little bit about what can you give, how can you inspire people to realize that they really need to eat organic, even if it costs a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity, because really we don't have a choice anymore. When I started coaching 10 years ago, I really said, be mindful, eat as much organic as you can, and read labels, because I'm an ingredient reader. So the first thing that I teach people, and I have 2 ebooks, I have a free e-guide, it's called Power in Your Pantry. And so that's what I do. I wish that I'd had this when I was suffering so much in my 40s. Somebody tell me what to eat. And then it became, now tell me how to read ingredients. And so I created this free guide that everybody has access to get out the number one poison, which is industrial seed oils. And the reason why that's so toxic, Rico, is it's in everything. So all of your packaged products, your shelf goods, anything shelf stable has got a lot of preservatives and chemicals in it. And if it's not in an organic store, then forget it. You're even loaded more. And so we've also got this genetically modified food situation right now, where these herbicides, pesticides, and these GMOs, well, the GMOs were created to be able to take on herbicides and pesticides. Well, they were basically like mutant creations that are actually, they were tested to be harmful and cause cancer, but that whole information got squelched. And so the GMO industry exploded because of the yield. You could make more of it. So right now we have things that are not only genetically modified, but our lovely, I call them, I'm being facetious, but Bill Gates now has a product out that he created that puts a film over food. I don't know if you know about it. It's like a plastic residue that goes on vegetables and fruit, and you cannot wash it off, and it doesn't clean. So the skin is the most important part of fruits and vegetables, because that's your fiber. Especially if you're eating a lot of fruit, you need the skin to balance the blood sugar spikes that it can cause. So that's the reason why now I tell everybody you have to eat organic, because if you don't pay for it now, you're going to pay for it later with extremely chronic disorders.
That's exactly right. I have a friend, a functional doctor, a functional medicine doctor here in San Diego, and he says, whenever I tell my patients that they need to eat organic and they say it costs too much, he says, really? Have you checked the cost of cancer lately?
Exactly. Have you priced cancer? Because that's the problem with all of this. So we have this rampant autoimmune disorder happening. And I'm going to say I was an autoimmune disorder child with all of the issues that I had. It was just lumped together as an issue that nobody knew how to resolve. And so right now they're lumping everything into autoimmune disorder, and it's legitimate because it's rampant inflammation, because we're full of toxins. But everybody has something different, Rico. You may be suffering from migraines. I may be suffering from gut issues. Somebody else may be having arthritis. It all manifests differently in each body depending on your history. So I'm already polluted when I was even born. or when I first was born. But I think what I try to explain to people in a very simple nutshell is that you are what you eat. You need to pay attention to what's at the end of your fork, because that's what's impacting everything. That's impacting how you think. It's impacting how you feel, and that make those choices based on your body temple. And you need to, this is the only thing you have control of, is your body right now, especially in this crazy world we're living in where we fell out of control. So if you vote with your dollar and you go spend a little bit more on these organics, we've watched the price of organic food go down considerably. We have all of these stores across the country now, across America, Walmart's, Costco, they are all catching up with the organic trend. Now, if you go into a store like Walmart, because I have to shop in them in the South when I go visit family, their area is like a 5-foot wide by 7 foot tall of organic, and the rest of the stuff isn't. And I like to ask, well, what is the rest of the stuff then if it's not organic? And it's basically poison. And so I do tell people that when I explain why it's so important to vote with your dollar and reading ingredients and buying products out there, Rico, they're coming out with more and more, delicious alternatives to wheat. But you got to be careful, because wheat is one of the most sprayed and GMO'd foods in the country, in the world, and it's also one of the most harmful. So we have to know that it's causing leaky gut and wrecking your stomach, and especially if it's poison. So unless you're fermenting and making sourdough bread, you shouldn't be eating this bread. You shouldn't be eating bread, period, even if it is organic, because it's made too quickly, and it's, disrupting our microbiome, because it's turning into to simple sugars, spiking our blood sugar, causing obesity. So I just ask people to think about buying less, buying more better quality, and it's going to also mitigate your weight issues, because if you're not buying all that stuff that is actually GMO'd, it's not organic, it's got chemicals and pesticides, and it's got all these things in it. Well, there's half your battle right there with your weight and your chronic issues. You take those out, then you're going to start noticing great improvement. And I've walked the talk, because I had to do a year of cleansing. And it was the best year of my life, because I got off of caffeine, I got off of sugar, I wasn't drinking alcohol, I wasn't eating processed foods, I was eating clean, organic protein and vegetables. And that's it. And you know what? All of my symptoms went away. The mental health issues, I suffer from anxiety and stress, pain, chronic pain. I mean, you talk about somebody who can really relate to symptoms. I had just about every symptom out there, except I didn't have a weight issue. And that's also a problem, Rico, because I'm thin. And if you have toxins in your body, guess where they store? In your fat cells. So if you've got your propensity for having like a little bit of weight around your middle, your thighs, your leg, different parts of your body, well, that's where the fat is storing. Well, for someone like myself who's thin, and there's a lot of us out there, it stores in our brain, because our brain is the fattest part of our body if you're healthy. And so I was getting I have a lot of brain issues. I have to be careful, with the anxiety, stress, and or memory issues, fatigue, that sort of thing.
Yeah, a lot of people are dealing with that. That's a great story, and thank you for that. I just want to add too, here's what you need to know about toxins. We're talking about all the toxicity in your foods, but think about all the other toxins in our environment, and the air you breathe, and water, and just it's in our furniture, our building materials. There's so much toxins all around, so it's a cumulative effect. And so what we need to do is the things that you do have more control over is the foods that you eat. So that's why it's so important to make sure you're eating clean and not eating and eating organic as well. A couple more, just last few questions is, how do you actually contest if you have a lot of toxins in your body? How do you test for that?
Well, there's a lot of expensive lab testing you can do. And if people want to spend that money, I certainly will recommend them. But I'm going to tell you, the first thing you can do is starting to do the elimination diet. So there's the 5 dark horses, which are wheat, dairy, corn, sugar, and wheat, dairy, corn, sugar, and soy, because those are obviously all highly GMO'd, highly processed, and in everything. That's the first thing I tell people to do. And then we start to see in 2 to 3 weeks, they're feeling better. And then all of a sudden, a lot of those symptoms will abate, and then we can focus on just a few that you may have that we need to maybe get testing. So there's genetic testing, which is pretty inexpensive now on some key markers. Like we want to know if you've got the MTHFR gene, which I do, which means you don't methylate vitamin B, your proteins, which obviously affects your brain. But there's certain key testing that I would do, and heavy metals is one of them. And it's very simple. There's some, I think there's some stool testing, and then there's some urine testing. But I tell people, do my protocol. I have a 3-step regimen. Do that first. Give it 3 to 6 months. And if we still need to do testing and move forward, then we're going to do that. But I'm going to tell you, I've got the solutions right now that's going to get you feeling better right away. And then you don't have to go spend. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of labs in a closet right here next to me that I'd spent over the course of 30 years. And basically it just told me I have a lot of issues. Nobody had solutions. So I suffered all those years. So now I'm saying minimally on the labs, but there are some heavy metal and non-metal testing we want to do. And then just to see where you are. And then that's going to prove to people, this is why you have to eat organic food. This is why you have to get off of alcohol. This is why, you've got to be mindful of the toxic, what you're putting in. Rico said this, your environment in your house is the air you breathe too in the home. What do you know? What is a big problem right now? I could go on a rampage for all of these products like room deodorizing
Yeah.
sprays. Oh my God. And I'm big on clean skincare. I only wear the best, makeup that I use. It's clean. I clean the house with vinegar and water primarily. I use Bonner soaps to wash there. There's so many great products, Rico. I get so excited and I get giddy. Instead of being depressed about what's out there, I get excited about solutions. I'm like, come on, come to my house. I can show you. And I do a lot of that with my Power in the Pantry ebook and free guide. I give you a lot. Here's my ebook, but it basically is all virtual, and I give you lots of solutions. So I
So
don't
we're
think.
going to put that. We're going to put that information. We're just about out of time. We're going to put that information in the show description
Yeah.
of how you can go to Suzanne's website and you get that free ebook. And then also just
Sorry, because it's a free e-guide, and in that's a coupon to get $10 off, and you get my 20-page, very impactful ebook for $9.99. So really, it's really affordable for everybody. But thank you. Yeah, we'll get all those in there, that information in my website.
and you have a really important summit that's coming up in April. So we're going to put that link on how people can check out your summit. But what's the name of your summit?
So the summit, Rico's on this. We had a great interview and a lot of fun. It's called Secrets to Radiant Health, which is my business name. Secrets to Radiant Health Detox for Longevity Summit. And I'm going to tell you, it's not old age that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about old toxins in the body, with a lot of the speakers having their own stories and how they inspire you for what they've done. And we have solutions. It's a solution packed summit. Yeah. And it's going to be April 1st through the 4th. And right now we're doing all of the promo. And if you want to be a part of it, you can be on it. And Rico's going to have information he can share with you because he's a speaker. And then you can reach out to me directly by email, and we'll add you to the list of opportunities to. And it's free. That it's a free one, so it's really going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll put all that information in the show description. Well, Suzanne, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for all your great work that you're doing, and thanks to our audience for being here as well.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Okay, bye.
Okay, we are back. So I have one more short message from one of our sponsors, all great products that can really be transforming for your life. So check it out, and then we'll have our final segment.
In a perfect world, we would all be happy, healthy, and successful. But stress, family, genetics, and life's little surprises take their toll on our brains, our bodies, and our psyche. And our quality of life suffers because we're not functioning at our best. Well, you can start by training your brain with the Quantum Mind method. This is not a game, and it's not a toy. It's developed by the world's only brainwave entrainment engineer, backed by over 40 years of research and development. It's 100% natural and couldn't be easier to use. With regular listening, your brain will naturally become stronger, more efficient, your most reliable ally, and all with almost no effort. You can achieve anything you want and get the most out of your life with the Quantum Mind method. The world is yours, so take it. Take it now.
So take it. All right, here comes the 5-step fat loss program. Hello, I'm Rico Cavella. Welcome to this episode of Fearless Aging. And the title of this episode it's a real good one. It's called the 5-step fat loss formula. And I want to add, this is for permanent fat loss. And our expert guest today, his name is Andrew Panella. He's the founder of Longevity Lifestyle, a movement empowering people worldwide to overcome chronic illness, boost energy, and get that permanent fat loss and thrive through sustainable, science-backed lifestyle change. He's a certified wellness and nutritional coach, personal trainer, specializing in corrective exercise with a background in economics and expertise in social impact and educational therapy. And he leverages the latest research to create educational content, courses, and personalized coaching programs. So, Andrew Panella, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Rico. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, this is a great topic. So my first question, just real briefly, just tell us your story, how you got involved with this, and and how you decide to develop your longevity lifestyle and the 5-step fat loss formula.
Yeah, I got involved in the health space really out of necessity because I was dealing with my own health complications. So I had dealt with a bunch of injuries. I was 50 pounds overweight. I needed to get a series of surgeries on my knees, on my hips. I ended up getting my surgery on my sinuses. I just had a lot of chronic inflammation going on, and I wasn't getting any of the long-term solutions I was looking for in the traditional healthcare space. And so I took it upon myself to start researching everything I could about the human body, ended up solving a lot of my own issues over a couple of years. And then I had a lot of people in my life asking me to try and help them out. Long story short, I left the social impact space, or the corporate social impact space, for more of the boots on the ground impact space. And now I work hands-on with people and promote a lot of healthy living content to help people just maintain the best possible health.
I love that. You know, most of the people that I interview have that same story, that if you really want to, get to the bottom of what your mostly chronic illnesses or things that you're dealing with in the field of health or wellness, you got to figure it out yourself and get involved with people who, like naturopathic doctors and those sort of people, and functional medicine doctors and people like yourself, you and I, that have gone through it and really learn what you need to do. So I love your story, and so tell us a little bit. First, I want to ask you what you feel. Why do you think we have such an obesity epidemic in America?
I think there are two primary factors, both underneath the broader topic of ultra-processed food. I just think we have access to so much food that is extremely dense in calories and extremely low in nutrients. So it doesn't satisfy the body. If anything, it just makes you, sort of sends you on this addictive craving cycle where you keep eating more and more. And unfortunately, the second part of that is a lot of those calories are refined carbohydrates or grains. In other words, they're things that our ancestors never had access to in the wild. And now they're on 90% of grocery store shelves. There's some form of a refined carbohydrate, and your body just doesn't do well long term when it's constantly exposed to that rapid influx of glucose or sugar.
Yeah, that's no question. And then also, I just recently saw a statistic that said still, as much as we know how important exercise is for it, all the benefits, still 80% of Americans are not exercising on a regular basis. It's just kind of mind blowing, isn't it? I mean, there's no debate of all the benefits that you can get from it, but still most people aren't doing it. So that's just so crazy. But anyway, so talk a little bit about, before we get into your program, talk a little bit about why obesity is so detrimental to your health and your longevity.
Well, one easy way to think about it is when you look at your body as a system, the chemical messengers that influence how all the different parts of your body communicate with one another are hormones throughout your body. So people are familiar with some of the common ones that people throw around, or the neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. But when you think about muscle tissue and fat tissue, both of them are hormone producing organs. And so the more fat that you carry around on your body, the more you are releasing hormones in a way that ends up being pro-inflammatory. So it ends up actually causing damage to a lot of other systems in your body. On the flip side, muscle does the same thing, releasing hormones that tend to be anti-inflammatory. So that's why those that are leaner and carry more lean muscle tend to have a lower baseline inflammation in their body, and just overall their systems are functioning in a healthier way because of that. So that's a really simplified way of explaining why obesity over the long term is really detrimental.
Yeah. As well as having that excess body weight puts a lot of strain on your heart, a lot of strain on your joints, and it is a precursor to diabetes and all sort of life-threatening illnesses.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, okay, one more question before we get into your program. What do you think about all these GLP-1 medications?
I've had a lot of clients that have experimented with GLP-1s, some that have gotten really good results, some that have felt very poorly, where they've gotten really nauseous and haven't responded very well. What I say to everybody is, when you have access to something like a GLP-1 or a pharmaceutical compound, even a supplement that's an all-natural supplement, that can be an on-ramp in your journey to starting to get some of the weight off or pushing through certain plateaus. But if you don't change the fundamental inputs in your lifestyle that led you to putting on extra weight or developing some degree of metabolic dysfunction or any negative health outcome, if you don't solve those lifestyle inputs, it doesn't matter if you use a GLP-1. Because one thing's for certain, I don't think you're going to be wanting to take a GLP-1 for life. So if you're going to take it for 6 months or 12 months or a 2-year period, you have to be managing and changing the lifestyle inputs at the same time, so that when you stop taking them, you don't just put the weight back on.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But also, what about the side effects? All drugs have some side effects, and they affect differently, right?
Yeah, we're pretty early on in the GLP-1 journey for a lot of people. I think it's anytime somebody claims we have a magic bullet to something, I always hesitate. I think there's always going to be trade-offs. Yeah. And like I said, I've worked with a lot of people that have been on GLP-1. Some have gotten great results, but the reason that we started working together is they basically said, I started taking this GLP-1, the weight's starting to come off, but I really am nervous because I've heard insert XYZ case study of somebody taking the GLP-1, losing the weight, and then gaining even more weight back because they've thrown their body out of whack and not fixed the problem.
Yeah. And I think we don't even really know what the long-term side effects could be as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your program. So what I really want to know is, let's go through your 5-step fat loss formula. But what I really want you to talk about too, why is your program different, and why you think that you can get long-term results? Because as you all know, we're still the fattest country in the world, and the weight loss industry is, I think now it's up to almost $500 billion industry, with all the weight loss programs and pills and powders and packaged foods, and yet we're still the fattest country. So obviously it's not working, so why is your program different?
Yeah, so good question. Anytime I work with somebody, my 3 biggest priorities are that they are building out a completely personalized lifestyle that fits their preferences, their schedule, their family life, even their genetic background, depending on how much data they have there. The second is that we keep it extremely simple. I do not typically suggest that people are counting macros or calories or anything that's going to be unsustainable. I find to be counterintuitive. So I try to keep it really simple for people. And part of that is just providing them with a lot of education on just some very basic concepts for how the metabolism and the body works. And then the last piece is, as we make changes, I never tell people to overhaul their life, because I think that's a recipe for failure. I look at what are the highest leverage things that you can change first that are going to get you the best results that will last. And then we build a foundation on those, and we only start to layer stuff on once you feel comfortable, like those have really become a part of your identity, part of who you are. So the reason I think a lot of results stick around is the education piece and the simplicity piece. Once people understand the inputs and mapping those to the outputs that they want, it becomes a lot easier to stop the weight gain in its tracks and reverse course.
Yeah. And so it's really about creating a lifestyle, because you have to, it's not something you do for a short time and then everything's going to be fine, right? Yeah. So you got to establish that kind of a lifestyle.
Which is also why it has to be completely personalized. I have clients that get on, they're like, please don't make me run. And I'm like, great, you'll never have to run. Let's just talk about what you like to do and then build around that. And because if you don't like it, you're not going to stick to it.
Exactly right. I totally agree. Okay, well, we'll just kind of briefly run through your 5-step program. What is some of the areas of your 5-step program?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of different frameworks that I'll share with clients, and this one is probably the most popular and the most consistently effective for fat loss. I call it the 5-step fat loss formula, and I came up with it just based on the common themes that were working really well for my clients that were trying to lose weight and keep the weight off. I can go into more depth on any of these if you want, Rico, but you just tell me and I'll just go through high level first. So
yeah, just briefly describe what they are, and because we want our audience to know that you have a free copy of this, so when they go to your website, they can get the free copy of your. That's a really great gift, a free copy of your 5-step weight loss. So maybe just what's the title of each one of them?
Yeah, of course. So this first step that I usually recommend to people is to shorten your eating window, meaning the time between your first calories and your last calories in the day. I usually suggest that people target a 6 to 8 hour window. And the reason for that being, you can almost think of your metabolism like a daytime and nighttime cycle. When you eat, you are putting your metabolism to work. And when you take breaks, you are allowing your metabolism to sort of catch up and rest and repair. And so when you don't take enough breaks and you develop metabolic dysfunction, things just start to break down. So the first thing I recommend, keep your calories in a 6 to 8 hour window. You don't have to eat any less calories, by the way. You just keep them in a contained window to give your body a break outside of that window.
Okay.
The second,
number 2.
So the second step that I recommend is to exercise before your first calories in the given day. So you need to customize this for your life. Some of my clients have their first meal at 8 a.m. and then they have their last meal at 2 or 3. Some have their first meal at 2 or 3 p.m. and their last meal at 8. I think you don't want to be eating that late necessarily, but before you have that first meal of the day, get some exercise in. And this doesn't mean you need to go to the gym for an hour. It just means you might even go for a 20 or 30-minute walk to put some energy demand on your body so that you can then tap into your long-term storage, which is your fat, because you haven't eaten. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is to prioritize eating at least 30 grams of protein in your first meal. So when you do have that first meal, have at least 30 grams of protein in that meal, and then do the same exact thing for the last meal. So when you think about your eating window as having a start and an end point, the start and the end, you want to have at least 30 grams of protein in each of those. That's going to make sure you stay full. Protein takes more energy to digest, so you're going to burn more calories digesting it. And most importantly, you're going to protect your muscle tissue, which is the anti-inflammatory tissue in your body.
Right.
Step number 4 is to, within your eating window, prioritize healthy fats instead of carbohydrates. So this is the one that is probably the most customizable for people based on their activity levels, based on how they respond. But generally speaking, most clients I work with, a large portion of their weight gain is due to over-consuming carbohydrates, which are purely an energy source. Right. And oftentimes they under-consume fat. And so we start to prioritize more fat than carbs in that eating window. And what that does is it gets their body accustomed to burning fat for energy, so that when you're outside your eating window, your body burns your own body fat.
Right. And Step
number 5 is to avoid drinking your calories. And this is one that a lot of people overlook. They think, okay, I'm going to stay away from the soda. I'll stay away from the alcohol. But then they might be having sports drinks that have either a lot of calories or a lot of sugar. They might be having fruit juice. They might be having too much dairy or too much milk. So being very mindful of liquid calories is the step 5 here. And then inside the download, I also have a bunch of other bonus tips too to help people with this.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And when you go to his website, we'll put that information in the show description, and you'll get a free copy of his 5-step formula. It's a lot more detail, and we just went over it real briefly. And the last question, we're just about out of time, and you can work with people virtually, right?
Yeah, I work primarily with people online.
Okay, great. Okay, so Andrew, thanks so much for being here. It's great information. I totally agree with you. You're doing some great work. And so I highly recommend to our audience, if permanent fat reduction is your goal, I think Andrew's the guy you want to see. So, Andrew, thanks so
Yeah.
much for being here, and thanks for your work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rico. And if people are interested in a deeper dive too, I also have a book on Amazon. It's called The Longevity Lifestyle, and it has a lot of the same frameworks and very simple systems in there that go in even more depth.
Great. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for being here. All right, that's our show for this segment. Again, thank you for being here. And again, I just highly urge you to take advantage of all the offerings from our guests and also our sponsors. I just want to say honestly, I wouldn't have our sponsors on if I didn't know their products would really work and can really transform your life. So check out our sponsors. Check out those sublingual supplements. They just so much more absorbable, easy to take. And the brainwave, you got to take care of your brain. So check out all of our guests and check out our sponsors and tell your friends about the Fearless Aging TV show. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks for being here.